August 22nd, 1977. A beach on the south shore of Loch Ness, opposite the ruins of Urquhart Castle. Gwen and Peter Smith, holidaymakers from England, are filming with their 8mm home movie camera when they see something strange rising from the water. Not the classic long neck of legend, something different, something vertical. A dark pole rising and falling in the calm water. They captured it on film. And decades later, that brief footage would become one of the most controversial pieces of Loch Ness evidence ever recorded. The Smiths were tourists, not monster hunters. Shortly after 5 p.m., in good visibility and calm water, they witnessed a dark, vertical, pole-like object rising from the surface of the loch. Their camera was already running. They captured several seconds before the object submerged again.
Well, we were standing on the south shore of the loch, some way up here, looking sort of across the loch. Peter was looking down at an oil drum somewhere further down, and I was looking across at the castle, just having a look at it, and this thing suddenly came vertically up out of the water.
My first impression was of a periscope-like object which had a slight lean to it in the water, although the head part seemed to be held horizontally. It appeared to rise up a considerable height, at least the height of a man, and it was, I would say, a good foot thick.
With the naked eye, it was just a black pillar shape with a rectangular-shaped head on the top.
At one point, I watched it actually turn its head through about 90 degrees, because normally it was in profile, but the head slowly turned round until it appeared as though it was either looking directly at us or directly away from us. And when it did this, it appeared to be the same thickness as the neck. It disappeared as a separate entity, and then it turned back again the same way as before.
What they filmed was strange. A straight, dark column, like a telegraph pole, rising vertically from the water with no visible head, no curve, just a rigid vertical form appearing and disappearing. The footage itself has rarely been seen. The original 8mm reel stayed with the family. Most people only encountered it in a brief clip on Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World TV series in 1980. Just a few seconds of grainy, distant footage shown in passing.
I've no doubt that the eyewitnesses have seen and indeed photographed something quite real. But it could have been a skull of fish, the wake of a boat, seabirds, a seal. Many possibilities have been suggested. The trouble is, it's very easy to be mistaken. For example, this looks like the most famous Loch Ness monster photo ever made. But actually, it was taken right here. We're at the entrance of Trincomalee Harbour. Believe it or not, an elephant used to swim across this opening, and the island on the right is called Elephant Island for that reason. Now, I'm not for a moment suggesting that any of the Loch Ness sightings were due to swimming elephants, but this does show how easily it is to be mistaken.
What makes the Smith film significant isn't the quality, it's the pattern it reveals. Researcher Roland Watson analysed over 1,100 Loch Ness sightings and found something remarkable. About 17 reports specifically describe vertical, pole-like objects, not curved necks, not humps, but straight columns rising from the water. Father Gregory Bruzy in 1971 described a 7-foot-high black neck, straight and rigid, visible for several minutes. In 1949, the warden of Altsai Youth Hostel reported something similar. Reports go back to 1933. These Pole Nessie sightings represent less than 1% of all Loch Ness reports, but they are consistent across decades. July 29th, 1993, Doris Beach. 16 years after the Smith footage, Dr. Simon Cook and his wife were on their honeymoon. Walking along the beach after dinner, they noticed something dark and vertical about 150 yards offshore. They watched for several minutes. It repeatedly rose and fell, not breaking the surface like a wave, but appearing and disappearing vertically. The object seemed to turn slightly on its axis as it submerged. Dr. Cook later wrote, "We both formed the impression that this was something living, and definitely not a log, although it did look like a telegraph pole rising and falling." Then came the crucial detail. Years later, while researching his sighting, Dr. Cook encountered the Smith footage on the Arthur C. Clarke program. He immediately recognized it. What we saw looked exactly the same as the object appearing in the Smith film. Independent witnesses, same phenomenon, same location, 16 years apart. Almost immediately, skeptics proposed an explanation, a hoax by local schoolboys. The theory suggests that on that August day in 1977, boys in a rowing boat rigged up a simple prank, a fence post attached to rope and anchor. By pulling the rope, they could make the post rise from the water, creating the illusion of something mysterious. The Smiths, filming from shore, unknowingly captured the prank. In 2002, researchers Richard Carter and Dick Rayner tested this hypothesis. They deployed a fence post on rope and filmed it from shore. Their test footage looked remarkably similar to the Smith film. Case closed? Not quite. First, no one has ever confessed. In 47 years, not one of the alleged schoolboys has admitted to the hoax. Second, what about Dr. Cook's 1993 sighting? Did the same pranksters return 16 years later? Did a new generation independently devise the same trick? Third, the Loch Ness phenomenon predates 1977 by decades. Unless we're proposing generations of Highland pranksters all using fence posts, the hoax theory doesn't explain the historical pattern. The schoolboy explanation is plausible, but it's not proven, and it doesn't account for everything. If not a hoax, and if we're skeptical about monsters, what did the Smiths film? Floating logs are the standard explanation. Trees fall into the loch. Logs with vertical branches can resemble poles. Gas buildup can make sunken logs rise suddenly. It's plausible. Except witnesses like Dr. Cook insist they observed controlled, repeated movement, unlike drifting debris. Navigation buoys exist in the loch, but they don't sink and rise. They remain at constant height, and they're painted in bright colours, not black. Diving birds like cormorants can create unusual effects when partially submerged. But the scale seems wrong. Witnesses estimate 5 to 8 feet above water, far larger than any bird. Optical effects from temperature inversions can distort distant objects. But this doesn't explain why independent witnesses consistently describe the same vertical pole phenomenon. The truth is, the Smith footage is too degraded and too brief to definitively prove anything. It's been copied, broadcast, recorded onto VHS, uploaded to YouTube, each generation destroying more information. By the time you watch it online, you're looking at maybe 50 pixels of data. The Smith footage remains what it always was: ambiguous evidence in an ambiguous mystery. But here's what we know for certain. Multiple credible witnesses across 8 decades have independently described the same phenomenon: a dark, vertical, pole-like object rising and falling in specific locations on Loch Ness. Whether it's logs, hoaxes, optical effects, or something unknown, the pattern is real. The Smiths captured a few seconds of that pattern on their holiday camera. It's grainy. It's distant. It proves nothing. But it documents something that people continue to see. And in a mystery as deep as Loch Ness, sometimes that's all evidence can do. Not answer the question, but remind us the question is still there. The loch is waiting,